Should you ever sell your silver and gold? And if so, when is a good time to do that? Well, I have a coin shop owner with me today who is going to talk about that because he has people coming into the shop all the time to sell silver and gold. And many of them actually share as to why. Is it because they're in financial trouble? Is it because they think the market's too high and they want to sell it before it dips? Or is there other reasons? Well, today we're going to talk with Josh from Coin and Bullion, and he's going to tell us what his customers are saying and also share when he thinks it's a good time to sell gold and silver, if at all. So let's do it. But do me a favor, don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this and help us get to 200,000 subscribers. We're almost there, and I'd love for you to be one of them. My channel is sponsored by sdbullion.com. New customers can get their first order of gold or silver at spot by going to sdbullion.com/new. All right, Josh, so I want to jump right into it today, and the topic that we're going to be talking about, obviously, is selling gold and silver. Now, I know you have a lot of people that come into your shop, and they sell gold and silver. And while you've said many times that you don't specifically ask them, a lot of people are happy to share information as to why they do. And so what I wanted to do is go over some of the reasons that people are selling gold and silver to you right now, and maybe talk about some of the pros and some of the cons, and maybe even some of the better ways to plan if you do need to sell silver in the future. So let's start off with this question. What are some of the reasons, and some of the worst reasons even, that people choose to sell gold and silver to you?
Well, I'll start with what I think is probably the worst reason. That's just they have no interest. They maybe have inherited a stack or slowly accumulated a stack over a course of time, and they just lose interest, whether it be they never had interest to begin with in the inheritance example. I see that a lot. People coming in here, grandpa died, my dad passed away, my uncle left me this, but I don't have any interest. I want the cash. For me, a personal stacker and somebody who sells it too, I don't try to talk them out of selling it, but I do say, well, if you don't need the cash, you should keep this. I mean, it's a store of value. I'm not trying to talk them out of selling it. Ultimately, most choose to sell, but I get that a lot where there's just no interest because they, as I said, inherit a stack. Or I've had situations too where people have actually not necessarily aggressively accumulated a stack, but slowly over time, whether it be gifts from grandma, she gives me a silver eagle every year kind of thing. I get a lot of people like that. And finally, they're like, I have this silver sitting in my drawer. What's it good for? I want to sell it. So in my mind, that's not necessarily the best reason. They're not selling out of hardship. They're not selling out of, the thought that they're going to reinvest that cash they're going to get into something, a different investment vehicle. But usually when they're doing that, they're just selling it to get the cash, and it's just going to be cash that's, free money, and they're just going to blow it on something else. So that in my mind is the worst reason to sell, which is really just lack of interest. But a lot of people are in that boat.
Oh, for sure. And speaking of no interest, I used to coin roll hunt a lot. I still do it a little bit, but on this channel, I used to open up these big boxes, $500 face value of $half. And there was a time where I was doing like 10 boxes in one night. So, $5,000 worth of $half going through them and finding silver. Now, I know, and that the silver that I was finding, and I was finding a lot of it, Josh, that silver has not been in circulation since 64 or 69 or 70, if you look at the 40 percenters. That silver's been in there recently. And a lot of that stuff, this is how I figure it, is stuff that was inherited or left to them by their grandma or grandpa, or they found laying around the house, or maybe grandma and grandpa needed money. They'd saved up all this money over the years, and now they need money to pay a bill or for Christmas. And it's funny because during like the holiday season, you would see more silver than normal. So I figured that's probably pretty accurate. But not to be very long-winded about this, but we found a lot of silver, and I know that stuff's not been out there since the 70s, which means that it's been put out there recently. So at least in the situation that you're talking about, they're coming into a coin shop and getting its value. A lot of this stuff I'm finding, they just took it to the bank. You know what I mean? Right. And got
face value.
And got face value for it.
Yeah.
So, I wish, like you said, that, people would take a little bit of time to think about what they're doing, but I know not everyone's going to do that. Not everyone has interest. Do you think that, those people that are coming in and selling it, is there like a way to get them interested in it at all? Is there a way to convince them that it's a good idea to hold on to it? I know you don't try and talk them out of it, but other than saying maybe you should hold on to this, do you give them reasons why maybe they should?
I do. In fact, I had a family in here yesterday. It was two I'm honestly not sure of the dynamic, but just based on ages, I think it was a grandma and her two grandsons. And her two grandsons were 10 and 12 years old, probably. And one of the grandsons had coins that he had inherited. Um, I don't know if it was from her husband or his grandpa or what, but I didn't get that far with them. But anyway, he was interested in getting some values and opinions. It was a lot of common stuff, clad Kennedy halves, presidential dollars, but he had a silver round. He had some junk silver. So I separated that out for him and explained to him what it was. And because he thought he just had quarters and some weird token, but the token, what he thought, is actually a 1 ounce silver round. So after giving him the values, his grandma, well, do you want to sell them? And he said, well, I don't know. And I could tell he was kind of hesitant. I said, if you have any interest at all in collecting this or investing in this, and you don't need the cash, my advice is don't sell. Ultimately, he decided to sell. His grandma, I think it was his grandma, didn't really pressure him, but when I told him I could pay him, it was like $62. I mean, it was a silver round and a few silver quarters and a couple silver dimes or something like that. All of a sudden his eyes lit up. Wow, $62, think all the Pokemon cards I can buy with that. I mean, he didn't say that, but that's kind of the thing that maybe in my mind crossed through his own mind. So I was unsuccessful, I guess, in convincing people, but I've had other people as well, who inherit things from their parents, aunts and uncles, grandparents. And it turns out to not be a lot of value, kind of like we're talking about this last example. They might have a few $100s worth of silver coins there. And I get the feeling that they don't need the cash right now. So I always tell them, I said, if you don't need the cash right now, if it were me, I would hold on to this. Even if you don't want to keep it, pass it along to someone in the family. Oftentimes there's going to be more sentimental value probably than monetary value to these small, accumulations of silver or gold. And oftentimes the family does decide to keep it. I don't try real hard to buy everything that comes in the shop. I will, but I'm going to, give people opinions, because a lot of times, well, what would you do? That's what they'll ask me. What would you do if this was yours? I just look at them right in the eye and said, if it were me, I would keep it. I mean, unless you need the cash today, I would keep it. So I guess that's my advice to other people out there too. Unless you need the cash today, you should keep it. But unfortunately, there's a lot of other reasons that people sell that I think we're going to get to.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, I think a lot of people put a lot of value in just having cash. They feel better when they have that bigger number in the bank account or that more money into their pocket. But if they really realized what is happening to the dollar, and I don't see it not continuing to go that way. I mean, you would realize that just hanging on to cash is not going to do you anything. I mean, if you were in the 60s and you were just taking that money and putting it under your mattress, it's worth nothing compared to what it was back then. Well, I mean, I guess maybe if it was silver that you were putting under your mattress, but that's not going to be very comfortable. We're talking about dollar bills here. You get what I'm saying? But I think a lot of it, and I'm sure you can attest to this, comes to education. I talk to my kids all the time about why gold and silver is important. Not just that it is important, but why that it's important. And my daughter has her own little stack of silver that's worth today around $600. It was worth less when, she started accumulating it. But, many times she has said, and I test her. I don't actually want her to do this, just so I'm not trying to get my daughter to sell her silver, but she'll say, oh, I want this or I want that. And I said, well, you have that silver that you could sell, right? And she goes, no, I don't want to sell my silver. I need to hold on to that. So she's
Great
already,
job.
yeah. So, and keep in mind, that's a test. My plan was not to get her to sell her silver, but I think a little bit of education, as to why gold and silver is important and why the dollar, hanging on to a dollar, is probably not the best thing in the world, would go a long way with a lot of people. But, off of that, there are other reasons that people sell gold and silver, Josh. So could you share maybe some of the other reasons that people sell gold and silver, and maybe even discuss some of the pros and the cons of why they do so?
Sure. I think the most common reason I probably see, and granted, this is when people share their reasons with me. I don't pry and ask, well, why are you selling? A lot of times they'll tell me, is hardship, and we touched on it in the beginning. Need for life expenses. They're having to sell part or all of their stack because they need food, shelter, or transportation. They might have their car broke down, or they're behind on rent, or gosh, they got to afford groceries this month. That's the most common reason. And it's, and I don't try to necessarily in that situation, but if they ask me, I'll give an opinion, but their mind's already made up. right? I mean, they're coming in here because it's hardship and they need the cash. They're not selling it to go on a vacation or to invest it into Bitcoin, or they're selling it to live. So that's probably the most common reason. Pros and cons of that, well, there really arguably aren't. Um, I mean, obviously, if they can sell it at a time where they're going to see a profit, that's the pro. If they can't time the market right and their hardship comes up at a time where they're going to take a loss, that's the con. So it's difficult to see people in that situation, but it's happened more and more frequently the last couple of years for sure. Hardship. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a story related to that. I have a friend of mine who used to buy silver rounds, and he'd literally drop them into the bottom of his fish tank. He wasn't investing in silver. He wasn't stacking silver. What he was doing was, unfortunately for him, his wife had passed away a number of years before that, and so he kind of went into depression. He would go out to the bar every weekend, and he'd get his paycheck, and by the time the weekend's over, it's all gone. So he was trying to prevent himself from spending all of his money, and he knew that if it were silver, it would be harder for him to just go to the bar and spend it. He'd have to take it out. He'd have to go to a coin shop and sell it, right? So, but I think it's good that people have silver in that situation. But I also think, the negative, what he was doing is that if he would have been doing it for the right reasons, he would have known to just save some of the money as well. Because I think it's important. We just talked about how, hanging on to the dollar is not important, but there's a caveat there. The caveat being that you need access to dollars, for emergencies. So if you get sick, or if you're in a car accident, you need to cover a deductible, or if something happens where you have an emergency expense pop up. I mean, I was just reading a report online that more than half of Americans can't even cover a $1,000 emergency expense. So don't put yourself into that situation with gold and silver, right? Make sure you have cash set aside, and then start putting gold and silver away, so that if you do come into that emergency expense, if you do come into that hardship, you have, something there where you don't have to sell your gold or sell your silver at an inopportune time. Would you agree?
Yeah, that's great advice. Well, not exactly what I would tell people, but I would give them the same message as well. That's great advice.
So you say not exactly. What would you say?
Well, I just mean I wouldn't use those exact words.
Oh,
I
okay.
wouldn't state that verbatim. But yeah, absolutely. You can't spend your gold and silver in most circumstances. You need to have cash for daily living expenses. So yeah, you should stack some cash also.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So, but it is good that those people have that, gold and silver that they can sell in the hardship at least. At least they're not just completely, screwed, if you will. So, what are some of the other reasons, though, Josh? What are some of the other reasons people come in to sell their gold and silver?
Recently, this is kind of complete polar opposite of what I just talked about. There's people that are selling for fun money, is what I would call it. Although currency, not money. If they're selling their silver and getting cash, they're getting currency and not money. But people selling because they want to buy a boat, they want to buy a jet ski. They found, the sports car they've dreamed of owning, and they want to liquidate metals to pay for it. So kind of people on the opposite end of the spectrum in terms of financial need. It's people that are just converting their metal so they can spend it on something fun. Maybe it's a lake house, I mean, I think I talked about boat and motorcycle already, but there's been a lot of reasons that people have come to me saying, yeah, I'm selling this because I'm going to go buy this, or I'm going to go to Greece, or, I mean, luxury items, I guess. They're liquidating real money in order to get currency to spend it on things that are fun to them or things they've dreamed of owning. So that's kind of the opposite, as I said, of the hardship, but I do see that happen a lot as well.
Well, there's got to be some pros and cons to that. So dig in. What are the pros and cons of doing that? Because I have my own thoughts, but I've talked a lot this interview. Go ahead.
Well, obviously the pros of that would be you're going to convert your metal into cash and use that cash for something you want. You truly want something you're interested, you've dreamed of buying, something you've always wanted to own. Personal satisfaction at that point is the pro, right? I mean, the con is obviously now you have, in most cases, a new asset that's going to continually depreciate versus, you had it in gold and silver before. Granted, there's ups and downs in that market. The long run, financially, you're probably going to lose. But maybe what you gain in positivity and, excitement, in your personal life, maybe that balances out for some people. And I think for some it does. There's a lot of people that, and we talked about it at the beginning, no interest for metal. There's people that, God, I've been buying gold and silver for 20 years, and I had all these aspirations. It was going to hit this number then, and and it hasn't. I'm bored with it. I'm getting out. I'm going to go buy that lake house or get a boat or travel the world. Or so I think there's a lot of people that are in those situations. In the end, it's a harm to maybe their net worth financially, but that's not always at the forefront of everybody's mind either. So if you can take some satisfaction and enjoyment by cashing out some of your stack, and this is kind of another arm of it as well. I have profit taking as a reason. Um, I think that's okay, but I would never liquidate my entire stack, to go do something which I would consider frivolous from a financial perspective, and spend it all. So I don't know. You can argue it either way, honestly, because you can't put a price on your own personal well-being and enjoyment, right? And if that costs you a couple ounces of gold to go buy a new motorcycle, and you have the means, go for it. But it's arguably a pro or a con.
Yeah, absolutely. And to be honest, like I don't necessarily really have a problem with anyone doing that as long as it's not putting them in some sort of financial straits on the other side of it, right? Like
Right.
I've never sold my gold and silver to, buy a jet ski or a car, but I have, and I love to drive. I have bought a car that was more expensive than I probably should have spent, that I could have just taken that extra money and put it into gold or silver because I love to drive it. So while I didn't necessarily sell my gold or silver, and on a technical perspective, depending on how you look at it, what angle you're looking at it, I did, because I could have bought more gold and silver with that money instead of spending it on that. But I really enjoy my car. I love driving my car. Like I literally still get behind the wheel, and sometimes it puts a big smile on my face. I roll down the windows and I go down the highway, and it just feels wonderful. So your happiness, I think, does have value. And I do want people to put a value on their happiness. I wouldn't expect anybody to just, stack a bunch of silver bars and a bunch of gold coins in a safe and then just sit in a circle and stare at it all day and not ever do anything.
Yeah, at some point, it's got to bring you some satisfaction.
Yeah,
I agree. Yeah.
absolutely. There was a story I read a couple of years ago of this guy who had died. He lived in this, regular house, nothing special, just in a regular subdivision like every other American, and no one really ever talked to him. No one really knew anything. He didn't have a whole lot of family, and he passed away, and never did anything. He was just always in his house. He just passed away. And well, come to find out that as the closest relative was going through the estate, they found like $3 million in gold coins just sitting in his house.
Wow.
Right. I mean, he never did anything. Like his neighbor said he was always home. He never went anywhere. So what could he have done that maybe he would have enjoyed his life a little bit more with some of that money? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you absolutely should put a value on your own happiness and enjoyment of life. And we only live so long, and even worse, we're only young for so long. So it's a lot easier. It's a lot easier to enjoy the money in your 40s than it is in your 70s. You know what I mean? So
Right. Yep.
So Josh, are there any other reasons that people come in and sell their gold and silver to you?
I touched on the profit taking, and that's a situation where you wouldn't necessarily liquidate your entire stack. And these other two kind of tie into each other. Profit taking and then changing investments. Profit taking, obviously, and people have asked me about this before on my own channel and in the shop too. What's your opinion? I kind of have a number in mind when silver hits this number or gold hits this number. I'm thinking about selling some just to take profits. I said, well, you should. I mean, kind of the whole point of this, I think, is to enjoy some profits. To your point you just spoke about, you really want to just keep stacking these and staring at them, and pretty soon you're dead. Did you get much enjoyment out of it? I guess that depends on the person, but I think profit taking, there's nothing wrong with that, provided that you use that profit taking in a financially responsible manner. Otherwise, we tie it into other categories like, you're selling it for fun money, or you're selling it because there's no interest. But yeah, I think profit taking is healthy and normal. I've done it. I definitely have done it in my own personal stack, where I've sold bits and pieces and, maybe store it in cash for a bit. And now here comes the next dip. Well, now I'm going to buy, 10 more ounces or an extra ounce of gold or whatever it may be. So if you're savvy about it, your profit taking, I feel, is a healthy thing and normal thing to do. The other part, changing of investment vehicles. I do get a lot of people that communicate with me that they're tired of the stagnant metal prices. Not so much lately, because we've had a great 12 months with both gold and silver, but just tired of the stagnant prices. I stare at my gold and silver and it's not going up in value, but all over the news, it's crypto this and crypto that, or Apple stock, or mining stocks, or whatever. They're selling to put it into some other type of investment, whether they're buying property or, as I mentioned, stocks or cryptocurrency or things like that. So that's really the fifth reason, I guess, that we would have covered now on why people are choosing to sell. And yeah, of course, there's pros to that as well. There's opportunities. And I think personally, there's going to be big opportunities coming fairly soon in real estate. Most places are in a hyperinflated bubble in terms of prices. And I think at some point, if we look at charts and look at history, that bubble's going to burst. There's going to be some good opportunity to invest in property at, cheap rates versus what we're used to, or cheap prices, I should say. Who knows about the rates, the interest rate. I think that's coming. And then at that point, yeah, you want to liquidate some of your stack to make a down payment on a rental home. I think that's a great idea in certain circumstances. So, and I've had other people doing that in the shop. So, yeah, I guess that's kind of my take on it.
Fair enough. Well, Josh, I think that's probably about as many reasons as there are to sell gold and silver. But I do want to just kind of touch on one final thing. And that is, guys, if you're ever wanting to buy gold and silver rather than sell gold and silver, there's a couple of great avenues to do so. One of them being this guy right here. He actually owns his own shop in Minot, North Dakota. Josh, your shop is Minot Coin and Bullion, correct?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Well, guys, if you're ever in Minot, North Dakota, check him out. But he also has his own YouTube channel, so you can check that out as well. I'll put a link for it down below. And then if you want to buy your gold and silver online, also check out my sponsor, SD Bullion. So
there you go. Great company.
Absolutely. Josh, thank you for joining me. I really appreciate it. I hope to have you on in a couple of weeks again, if you're okay with that.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, we will see you soon. Thank you.